Hey guys, how's it going? We're gonna jump straight into this. I just need to make sure that the live is okay. Cool. Live is sounding good. Ready to go. So, title of this live: How to Manage Debt Like a Millionaire. So, story time first. So I was feeling a little froggy, because for those of you who don't know, I have two cars. I have a 2014 Honda Civic, just very base model Honda Civic. It doesn't even have a touchscreen. It ain't got no Apple Play. It ain't got nothing in it. It's just a basic Honda Civic, with has the nicer rims than like just the base model, but for the most part, it's a base Honda Civic. So that's my primary vehicle that I drive, because I do live in the suburbs. So, coming in and out of the city, that's the car that I drive the most. But then I also have a 2000 GMC Sierra, 1500 Z71, all that stuff, big mud tires, whatever. The point is, so both of these vehicles are very old vehicles, by today's standard. I mean, the Honda Civic's about 8 years old. The GMC's over 20 years old. So I was just feeling a little froggy, and I was like, man, I want to know because I've seen the new Honda Civic. I want to know what it would cost me to get a new Honda Civic. Like I was just feeling froggy. Like I've recently graduated. I was like, you know what? Yeah, I practice. I preach about not buying cars, but you know what? Like I just feel like, I deserve this. Like I should buy myself a car. And oh my gosh, like, this is why it's good to be like rooted in like good philosophy about money and finances, because once I got in, because I went to a dealership, and like once I got in there and I'm listening to this person talk and tell me like what the cost is out of the door, I was like, man, these people are insane. You think I'm gonna spend that much money on a car? You got me messed up. So, anyways, guys, so I went to the dealer, um, and I said I want to see, because I've seen it on YouTube and stuff. I was like, I want to see the new Honda Civic in person. I gotta see it. Let me see it. I want to see the inside. I want to see all of that. So I'm gonna tell you guys, it is a phenomenal vehicle. It is a nice car. I mean, in comparison to my Honda Civic, like, I mean, you would probably think that you're looking at a luxury vehicle. I mean, that's how nice these new cars are. LED turn signals, LED um, headlights, LED tail lights, very nice trimmed out interior. You got your Apple CarPlay, digital speedometer, odometer, all that kind of stuff. The vehicle is nice. I mean, like I said, to say it's a Honda Civic, I was blown away. So I'm talking to the guy and I'm like, yeah, man, how much does one of these cost? Because like the window sticker doesn't have a price on it. It lists out all of these features, but it doesn't have a price on it. So I asked him, I said, man, how much it costs? How much is one of these cars? And so, to my surprise, I was really surprised. I mean, my jaw almost dropped when he told me the car is $37,000. I was like, oh my gosh, like $37,000, like to walk out the door with a Honda Civic with like the sport package is $37,000. Now, keep in mind, guys, this car didn't have a sunroof. The seats were still cloth. Like, I mean, it was a nice car, but it's not no luxury vehicle, right? And I'm like, you're talking, and then on top of that, the vehicle was used. It wasn't even new. It was used. It had 20,000 miles on it. And I'm like, you want close to 40 grand for this, for a Honda Civic? Yeah, I just couldn't do it. Like I was like, man, you know what? It's nice talking to you. I appreciate you showing me the vehicle, but I gotta go. So that's the story. I love to start off with a story. This is how wealthy people manage debt. Wealthy people do not, the first principle of how you manage debt like a millionaire. Wealthy people don't own consumer debt. They don't own it. They don't have it. If stuff like a car, a home, personal loans, they might have cars and so forth, but their debt to like income ratio. So like let's say, they got a car loan that's like $20,000. I mean, they might be making $300,000, you know, and it's kind of just like, okay, I got this $20,000 loan just to make the payments on it and build up my credit, my business credit, whatever the case may be, however they got the loan. But they're not making $40,000 a year and then going and they got an $80,000 car. No, that equation doesn't add up if you're trying to be wealthy. So wealthy people do not own consumer debt. And so consumer debt cars are one of the worst um consumer debt items that you can buy. And I almost felt I'm the teacher and I almost fell victim to it, just because I was like, man, tired of driving this old Honda Civic, which I mean, it's really not old, but it is old. But I was like, I'm tired of driving this old Honda Civic. I want to give me a new car, but I just couldn't justify the price. I couldn't do it. So the wealthy the millionaires, um, for the most part, do not own consumer debt. Houses, that's another thing. So people think that, their house is their greatest asset. People think that a home is like the epitome of being wealthy and being a millionaire. And it's actually not. A home, and this is if you guys want to go back into the video where I made about assets and liabilities, a home is a liability. A home that you live in is a liability. Cost you money. You're paying the mortgage every month. You're paying the upkeep on it. Don't let it be an older home, but you're paying the upkeep where you're fixing stuff. Maintenance. You're gonna have maintenance on any home. You got to do the air filters, yard maintenance. Um, so you're gonna have these expenses that are associated with a home, insurance, taxes. Um, and so a home isn't intrinsically in and of itself a asset, or it doesn't put you in a place where you're like automatically wealthy because you own a home. Um, it's fascinating. I have another story for you guys. So I actually work in a job where I get to meet. I'm not going to tell you guys what I do, but I'm going to tell you what this job allows me to do. So I actually work in a job that allows me to meet a lot of different people from a lot of different backgrounds. And I was talking to this lady, um, has a really brand new house, and out here in the suburbs. She probably spent, I mean, it's a new build, new construction, really nice. Probably spent anywhere between three to $400,000 on this house, and she is barely making it. I mean, she has a $400,000 house that she paid for. That's not saying that it's worth that, but that's what she paid. And then she has this $50,000 Audi. So she's maxed out. Like she got $400,000 house and $50,000 Audi. So she got anywhere between close to $500,000 of debt, or close to a $500,000 worth of debt. So she's maxed out. She's stressed out. Like, she gotta go to work. Like, if she cannot not go to work, she has to go to work. She cannot, I mean, she's literally living from paycheck to paycheck. She does not have an emergency fund. She can't build an emergency fund because she has so much debt that everything that she's paying every month, everything that she's making every month is going towards the debt. So they're drowning in debt. It's a couple. The lady's a nurse, and then the gentleman, he has a landscaping company. But they're drowning in debt. Um, and the thing is that you have a home, right? But that home is literally the source of your stress. That home is the source of you not having upward mobility to do the things that you might want to do. Like, you might decide. I was talking to the lady because she was like, I want to go back and get my master's. because I was telling her that I'm getting my master's, that I recently graduated with my degree in history, and she's like, "Well, what do you want to do with that?" Like everybody seems to just ask me that, like, "What do you want to do with a undergraduate degree in history?" And so I tell them like, "Hey, I'm going back to get my master's in history, and my plan is to be an adjunct professor, while I also have another main job." So she was like, "Yeah, like that's really cool. Like, I would like to do that. I would like to get my master's, but I have this house, I have this car, my kids are trying to go to school. And so, like, I just don't know how that's going to really fit and how all that's going to work." So, the moral of the story, guys, is wealthy people, millionaires, don't believe that their home is the source of their wealth. Now, once you become wealthy, can you go buy a house? Absolutely. But is it intrinsically like the source of your wealth? Like because you bought a house, you are now wealthy? No, that's not the case. That is not how millionaire people, that is not how wealthy people manage debt. So the last thing is, which, this is probably the worst one, is personal loans. Like, please, like, there's no reason to go get a personal loan for anything. I mean, I've seen people go get personal loans to do home improvements on their house. Why would you go do that? Just save up the money. Now, some things may be very pertinent and you have to do it. That's why you have an emergency fund. So you don't have to go and get into debt to fix something that's very pertinent. Um, I've seen people where, they own a house, the roof is leaking, it's real bad, it's all caved in, or maybe the AC goes out. And I mean, they don't even have, the unit is completely gone out. They didn't even have $1,500, $2,000 fixed AC. They don't even have, but they had this house, they had this big old house. And so it just doesn't make sense. So they go get a personal loan to go fix the AC. Now you got more debt. Now you have more money that you're coming out of every month. Wealthy people don't leverage debt like that. If a wealthy person, and that's what we're going to get to. I was telling you guys what wealthy people don't do. Now I'm going to tell you how wealthy people do manage debt. So, wealthy people leverage debt for like a business, or they'll leverage debt for like education. So, you'll see, for example, like somebody might go and become like a neurosurgeon in college, and they might have spent $200,000-300,000 on their education, but they're gonna make $500,000 coming out of residency. Like once all of it is said and done, like their vocation, their specialty that they did in medical school is gonna make them $500,000. I know a guy. He's on YouTube. He is a orthopedic surgeon. And orthopedic, if you're thinking about becoming a doctor, the orthopedic specialty is one of the highest paying specialties. He's going to make like $500,000 coming out of medical school. And so, yes, he spent, $200,000-300,000 on his education. He's going to make $500,000 a year. So, I mean, if you think about that, on average, if he gets out of residency by the time he's 34, I mean, within 2 years, depending on how he manages his debt, if he's manages it like a wealthy person, within a couple of years of him being out there, in the real world working as an actual doctor, he's already paid that off, So wealthy people manage debt like that. Now, I'll give you an example of what an unwealthy person would do is they will go, say, "Hey, I want to go to this private institution that's out of state. I'm going to spend $50,000 a year. I want to live on campus. I want to do this and do that." And so, at the end of it, yeah, you got your 4 year degree. You spent probably $200,000 and you got a degree in music. And I mean, it's nothing wrong with majoring in music, nothing wrong with majoring in the liberal arts, math, I mean, history, anthropology, nothing wrong with these majors themselves. But the issue is what you pay, and this is something I would continue to preach. I've preached it in the past, but I'll continue to preach. It's about what you pay for that degree. So the payoff, like if you're a music, I mean, you get your undergraduate degree in music or history, um, one of the liberal arts, sociology, psychology, one of these. I mean, your income, what you can make coming out with a degree like that, is very limited. So understanding that, you shouldn't spin your wheels trying to get that degree. Like what that probably looks like more realistically for you is to go spend 2 years at a community college and then go to a state school for 2 years, stay at your parents' house. So then, even if you do take on student loans, you've probably only taken on maybe ten to $20,000 of student loans, which is a lot more manageable considering that you're only going to make maybe 60, 50, 60, $70,000 a year, um, versus like you going and get like $200,000 of debt. You want to go to this private institution, they ain't give you no scholarship, out of state, you spent $200,000. Yeah, you had the time of your life, but now real life sets in. You're back home with that music undergraduate degree, and you realize that really the only thing that you can do is probably teach at a public school and make $50,000, $60,000 a year. And if you got rent and if you got a nice car and you trying to pay that student loan, you will be paying that for the rest of your life. So wealthy people don't manage debt like that. See, and so that comes to calculating the risk reward ratio. So like I said, I have no issues if I know for a fact I'm gonna make $500,000. I have no issues investing $200,000 into that. But if I know for a fact I'm only gonna make $50,000, why would I go invest $200,000 into something that's only gonna make me 50 the first year? Doesn't really, you see what I'm saying? Like the payoff on that is going to be too long. You, you be better off if you're going to put $200,000 into something. You'd be better off putting that $200,000 into something else where the payoff is going to be a bit more rapid, because you have to also factor in interest and other factors when you're taking out a loan. So that's how the wealthy people manage it. They calculate that risk to reward ratio and they say, okay, is the debt that I'm going to take on, is it worth the risk? And that's what you call leveraging debt. So something I'm gonna get on real quick, and then I'm gonna be done with this episode. So a lot of people talk about Donald Trump. They say that, and we're only going to discuss Donald Trump. I'm bringing Donald Trump, but we're only going to discuss him in an economic sense. We're not talking about him in a political sense, but just from a pure economic sense, right? You know, viewing him in the lens of like an objective, like business person, he's an absolute business like genius, right? So a lot of people talk about him. They say that, oh, he's drowning in debt. He's not making any money. But see, what they're not understanding is, yeah, I mean, if you got $1 billion worth of assets, what is $1 million in debt? Or a couple $1 million in debt? If you got assets that's worth $1 billion, couple $1 billion, you're not concerned with having the debt that's servicing those assets being like $1 million. So there's levels to it, right? And so the people who are looking at his yeah, they're looking at his debt and they're saying, "Oh, he has $1 million worth of debt. He's drowning in debt." Yeah, for like a normal person, yeah, he's drowning in debt. But for him, he's like those assets. Number one, they're producing more than $1 million, so the asset itself is producing for him. Then on top of that, it's intrinsically worth more than $1 million. It's worth $1 billion. If he wanted to liquidate today, he could liquidate the assets, pay off the debt, pay the government their 20% capital gains, and still come home like eating and made a whole bunch of money. So that's what you got to understand about like debt. So it's not about how much debt you have. Sometimes It's about how much you're producing. And so that's why we're going to go back to the car example really quick. That's why, like, if you're only producing like 50, $60,000, it doesn't make sense for you to have $100,000 vehicle and you're only producing 50 to $60,000. You know, that in and of itself doesn't make sense. Um, Especially, when you count the fact that a vehicle, I mean, if you're selling it for $100,000, it's probably only worth 80 as soon as they title it to you. You know, I can get on board a little bit more with somebody who buys a house because typically a house will appreciate in value. Typically, some of these new homes, like one of the clients that I had, I was just discussing with you, where they bought like a new construction. Those you really never know because it's a new construction. The market hasn't been established in that particular neighborhood, so you don't know if those values are going to hold up. That's why typically you it's not really the best decision to buy a new construction, because you just don't know how those values are going to hold up over the different shakeouts in the market, which the market's going to shake you out. And we're seeing that right now a little bit in the real estate market, where the market's kind of slowing down and it's getting ready to start shaking some people out. But if you have a market, a neighborhood that has consistently, even throughout the shakeouts, it has consistently kind of maintained a certain value, then that helps you understand, okay, well, this property is probably intrinsically worth what it is that they're asking for. And so you're typically not going to see that in a new construction area because, like I said, it's new. The market has been established. The builders are establishing the market. Um, and so, you just don't know with that. So, but if you look at a neighborhood that was maybe 20 years old, 30 years old, 40 years old, you can definitely see a trend within that market and see if what you're purchasing is worth it. So, anyways, y'all, that's really all I have for this live. I haven't had an opportunity to make any videos, so I was like, let me get on here and shoot out this live really fast and talk to you guys about how the millionaires and how the wealthy people manage their debt, because ultimately, if you're watching this channel, you're watching content like this, like you're trying to be financially well off, you're trying to aspire to be at a point where you're wealthy. And so one of the primary things that you have to get under control, particularly when we're living in this society that says buy, 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 is you have to learn how to manage your debt. Because I mean, if I wanted to, I'm going back to, what the story that I led with. If I wanted to, I could have bought that. Like, my credit is good. I have 700 credit. Like, I could have bought that car on credit, but I'm not in a place where like my income is at a point where it makes sense. You see what I'm saying? So if I'm making $60,000 right now, why would I go buy a car that's 37? you know, it just it doesn't make sense, right? So um yeah, that's really all that we have for today. I'm going to be um, dividing this live up into some shorts. I think that that's a nice formula. I've seen a couple people do. I really like that. So we're going to make some shorts out of this. Hope you guys enjoy the content if you're watching later. Anyways, my name is Joseph. Thank you so much for watching. And until the next time, I'm out. Peace.